People, my good people, I'm back and I'm on. Let's get the vibe going. Let's get some incense going, some frankincense and myrrh. We gotta get it right. We gotta get the energy right. We gotta call in the spirits, ancestors, spiritual guides, Allah. Thank you for everything you're doing for us, what you've done, what you're doing, and what you will do. We ask that you come into this session of a collective conversation so that we can talk about what's really going on in the world. Doing a little sage, get rid of that negative any entities that anyone has been dealing with in their life that is negative. People, places, things, messages, media. The list goes on. So let's get a little bit of positivity going in this motherfucker. Get this out of here. Oh, how's everybody doing? I mean, I just feel like I don't even know. I miss whoever I'm talking to. So, coronavirus. Coronavirus. A virus attacking a respiratory system. A respiratory system that you probably haven't really been taking care of. How do you breathe? How do you feel when you get sick? Does it take a long time to get better? Do you feel that you struggle with the ability to know what's going on with your own body? Why? Because you're always on the rat race. You're a part of a society that makes you feel that if you're not doing something all day, every day, you're not doing anything at all. Even if what you're doing doesn't align with who you are, where you should be, and what you've been called to do, as long as you're doing something, fluff work, let's call it, you're good. And so when we fill ourselves with so many things we don't need, how do we know what we need? How do we know when something is wrong? It's just like this virus, everybody has it, nobody has it, certain people have it, certain populations are at risk. I think if anything, the populations that we know are at risk would be naturally babies, because their immune systems are still building, old people because they're getting old, and this is just how it works. They're susceptible to many things more than other people are because their immune systems are starting to become weaker. And then, of course, the homeless, the people who don't have resources, those that are very limited. They have jobs they're very disposable anyway. I mean, get into it. Anything that is of the most highest hit would be those things, outside, of course, the things that have happened in other countries like China, where if we don't even want to get into how somebody got sick, everybody got sick, shut it down. Nobody goes nowhere, shut it down. Now full circle, they out. Everybody cured. So it's like showing that even though we may not like what they do over there, how they operate, they have a system of being able to take care of problems and create solutions. We live in a society in the United States of America that does not create solutions, that actually pretends to perpetuate change and equality, and we're all one, when the reality is we're not that. And I think, if anything, coronavirus is kind of like that person who calls you out. Coronavirus is what makes us realize that the things that we believe in, a government that's not prepared, a healthcare system that's not prepared, jobs that aren't prepared, workforce that's not prepared. We're invested and embedded in things that are not prepared for anything, but you have been made to believe that as long as you get up every day and do what you're supposed to do, that you're going to be all right. Coronavirus is such a symbolic representative of who do you really think is in charge? Like, what isn't so important to you that if something happens and everything gets shut down, you're panicking, you don't know what to do, you're unsure, you're scared? And I'm not saying these aren't natural emotions and reactions to what's happening in a pandemic, but what I'm saying is this is making us have to realize who we are and what we've focused our energy on thus far. We've all been given these assignments, and I say this all the time. We've been called to do something in particular. It's a special gift you've been given that no one else can ever foster, explain, break down, and make you live to your full potential to receive it. But even though we may know that and we may have that in us, we will still align with what's being presented to us. And so I look at coronavirus like a checkmate, so to speak. What has been your game plan? What has been your strategy? And if your strategy is of the world, if your strategy is of things that don't really matter, like I said, all these entities, whether it be education, government, education, healthcare, private sectors, public sectors, all these things fall in line with an idea that you are putting your belief in that won't give you any answers that you seek, any protection you seek when something like a virus goes rampant. Who are we? Is the question. What do you gain from relying on things that have no answers when a real traumatic pandemic arises at your door, knocks at your door? What are you invested in? What are you waiting on? What do you give your time to that honestly will give you nothing except a false sense of security? I think about me leaving working for corporate America and deciding to work for myself and be a consultant and an entrepreneur. When I made that decision, it was hard. It was lonely, but it was necessary. Isn't coronavirus lonely, but necessary? When I made a decision that I couldn't live off of a healthcare system I couldn't work in the healthcare system because I used to be fully in the healthcare system. I just knew I was going to be running, hospitals and facilities. Like, when I had this mentality, you know, what was I investing in? A healthcare system that's not prepared for what it's supposed to be, was created for. You know what I mean? When I chose to leave healthcare and focus more on internal care, what I eat, what I put in my system in terms of protein and nutrition, shifting the idea of drinking sodas and sugary drinks all the time, and detoxing my soul, detoxing my body from things that I know don't help me. They are only going to give me a false sense of security and reality, and then create more problems that I end up having to deal with in the long run. But if I learn to get off of that and get into to myself, get off of what I've been presented with and get into what I'm supposed to be doing, then I discovered herbs. I discovered, fruits, and not fruits like I never knew, but the power of fruit, the power of veggies, and changing your diet and implementing these things daily, weekly, monthly, and making it a lifestyle. And understanding that if a crisis comes, I can always plant these things. I can always get seeds that will grow, and they will help me over time. And I won't be subjected or subject or I'm sorry blocked from anything besides what's being given to me. That was what I thought when I made that decision. And ever since I made that choice to leave that ideology of what I thought I wanted to do and shift into something else, the shift was all a part of the preparation for what was to come. I, over those years, have gotten the education that I wanted to be able to work for myself and do the things I want to do. But I also learned outside of just, regular school that I signed up for by reading and researching and investing in other people's educational journeys, that there's so much more out here that we can learn that can prepare us for a life that isn't given to us, but that we're going to create. So learning about herbs and the power of herbs and their healing power it just excites me even thinking about it. Going to the store and being able to get, sage, rosemary, basil, orange, lemon, lime, throw all that on the stove, put a little bit of essential oil in it, breathe that in, feel good, glow. Look at the skin, look at the glow. Respiratory steams every day, be. And then it just makes you think, why wasn't I already doing what I had already shifted out of and started to learn about. I learned, I retained, I learned, I retained, but I didn't implement. Not consistently. I'm not gonna say I didn't do it at all, but not consistently. And I think that's what coronavirus represents. Coronavirus represents so many things, by the way. But it definitely represents the idea of something goes rampant, something attacks people, and what are your mechanisms? What are your defense mechanisms? I've always been a very clean person, somewhat OCD they call me, and I'm fine with that. Every month I like to get the 10-pack or the 6-pack of Clorox wipes, the Clorox, the the toilet droppers, everything, just to keep things clean. Wash your stuff every week, like keeping things in order. Cleanliness next to godliness. So by being that person, would I be rushing out when a crisis hits to go get all these things? Well, not really. I've already had them. And all I'll do is just go get my normal monthly, subscription or pickup, and then I'll be fine. And if we all were doing that, would things be empty? Would shelves be gone? Like, would we really be here? And when I think about your job, like, unfortunately, people have lost their jobs, their money, their income, their stability, but at the same time, that was never really security. They say you have to have 7 forms of income to feel truly comfortable. So if you just had one, you were never really okay anyway, right? When you think about the energy you put into something, that when a crisis hits, it's just like being in a bad relationship. It's like our lives are continuously bad relationships with the government, with our jobs, with our friends, with our family, like just not getting what you deserve, not getting the reciprocity out of something you're putting all this energy into and finances into. It's like, when do we wake up from that? And what scares me about this coronavirus and people having to be home is that instead of focusing inward and focusing on, and I'm not going to say everyone, but it seems like it's an energy of dwelling on what's wrong, dwelling on what you feel you've lost, dwelling on what you can't do, dwelling on what the media is telling you, dwell, instead of get to work. You have been blessed and allocated this time to figure out who you are, to start to live to your full potential, to start to implement ways and structures that won't be broken or shaken based on what's happening in the world. Everything we do has to align with what we've been called to do. And if it is, then you won't lack. You won't wonder. You won't be in a frenzy like everybody is, because you'll understand. And there'll be a sense of peace I feel that ancestors and God and your spiritual guides will give you for living in your true purpose. Now, don't get me wrong. Being in the house, I'm a Gemini. I'm all over the place. I'm like, I got to go, but I don't really got to go. Because I think I've mastered this in the last 2 years of, there's this voice in your head when you're shifting out of a world that you've been born into and conditioned into, and when you get out of it, you start to break free of it. There's still this remnants, of, you need to be doing this, you should go here, you should do this, and it's like, relax, go take a walk. I'm not saying you don't acknowledge that energy, but you don't feed into it. Sometimes I get caught up in social media and I get caught up in looking at shit, and I have to check myself, like, hold on. This was entertainment hour. It's time to get back to work. So I counter that with trying to take in information that's challenging me, that I haven't seen before or read before. But above all, I can say that this outbreak of this virus and the way that it's put us in these positions, I like it. I actually love it. And I pray, my prayer for everyone is that you find in this pandemic your identity, if you haven't found it already. I pray in this pandemic you find your purpose. And in all of that, you find your peace. this is going to be a journey that isn't just about the shutdown of a world or a city or activities. This is more about a shutdown of shit that no longer serves you. Because really, when you get into it, if, like they say, this virus will attack anyone, age, race, all that doesn't matter, then guess what you gonna do? You're going to sit at home and you're going to focus on what you didn't do and who you aren't and what you were doing that made you feel required to be something that you weren't happy with, that you weren't living to your full potential with, that you weren't loving yourself the right way and having loving and positive and productive relationships, because that's what we do. We try to have relationships that are great. We invest in things that don't matter. The village doesn't talk about it. We don't call each other out on anything. And then we just talk about each other. Let's just be real. That's what we're doing. And this, to me, this virus is creating a world where you got to get up out of that bullshit. You got to rise up, or you can stay where you are. And this will be a very, very hard journey for you. And even when we come out of this, you'll still be looking at yourself like, what was I doing and who am I? And is that what I was? And is this the kind of shit that I focus on when my back is against the wall? Other shit, things that don't work, not being real with myself. What are we going to do? And so we can focus on the deaths, even though the reality is there's been death happening every day, every day. And maybe it hasn't been this thing where it could just tap you or you could, catch it and die. But isn't it though? I mean, being black, I can die any moment at any day as long as someone is a cop or has some fake ass title. They can always have an excuse or reason to kill me at any moment. Is that not a virus? You have kids in these school systems not getting everything they deserve, being mistreated and used as puppets or as cash outs. Is that not a virus? You know what I'm trying to say? You have doctors taking grave advantage of elderly people, people with no money, or not caring, minorities, women. My mom almost out of there over what? A normal, regular routine of just filling them up and shipping them out. It's a virus. It's a virus to have to give to something and not know where it's going. To have to be bled of your money and invest in something that and like I say, a real pandemic hits, there's no answers. There's no resources. You have to wait. You have to stay home. That's a virus of greed and lies and deceit. But I guess because we think we're not dying rapidly like coronavirus, that we're not all caught up in a virus every day. And really what's kept us alive is your immunity to it. Your immunity and your ability to just receive it